Hey, BassGeek here, and spring can be one of the best times to catch bass. Big bass and numbers of bass, but every once in a while in the spring, you run into the conditions like we've had today, and it gets unbelievably tough. Well, I'm going to give you the technique and the answers to solve that puzzle. So let's talk about situation. I wish we had this situation first thing in the morning, but for pretty much most of the day, it has been a high sky bluebird conditions. It has been, the water temps are upper 50s to start off the morning. Now the bass are staging. So they are pulling up to the areas that they're going to spawn, but we'll talk about that in just a minute. We had a full moon, this full moon last night, and we've got clear water. We've got easily 4 to 5 feet of visibility. Now, all that sets up for a really tough situation because the bass we know have fed up on shad at night for the past 2 nights. So when you have that full moon and you have that clear water, you need to be out on the lake early. Now, the other thing is we've seen all kinds of bass. They're not making the beds, but they're in the areas they're going to bed. So from middle of the creek, middle third to the back. And like I said, that brings us to location. So these bass are pushing into the backs of the creeks. They're getting ready to spawn. Now they're not quite there yet, but they are getting close. They are in the middle third to backs of the creeks right now. And they are really around those areas that they plan on spawning. But they haven't committed to the beds. They're not up on the beds yet. What we found today is that they're in staging areas, on little secondary points, around secondary ditches, in wood and laydowns. What we also found when it came to the bass's attitude was that they really wasn't ready to chase anything. They didn't want to chase it far. They really didn't want straight line baits. So you needed something that mimicked everything that was back there with them, which was a ton of shad, and it had to sit in their face or fall very slowly. Like I said, we started out with some jerk baits, hard jerk baits, but since we had no wind, they really, in that clear water, it really wasn't working. And like I said, that is when this little puppy came into play. All right, geeks, so the bait that we were using today and that we really had our success on is this little bait right here. This is called the Mortal Minnow. Let me show you some pretty unique features about this little bait from Bass Reaper. Listen, you geeks know I love small companies, and this is a small mom and pop company. I mean, right out of their own house. You ought to go check it out, especially those small companies that are innovative. And this little bait has been out for quite a while now. I think it's been out for about a year. I picked up some of them last year, so it is a really uniquely designed and incredibly unique action. This little color right here is the watermelon pearl. So it's got a watermelon back, it's got a pearl belly. Now they do, of course, always still have the split belly, just like 90% of your fluke-style baits or your soft jerk baits. What sets this apart is it's a very flat top of the bait, and it's got the split tail, but it's got this great joint right here that gives this bait and this tail some incredible action. Now, it's really unlike anything that I've ever seen on a soft jerkbait. And the unique part about it is too, is it actually comes back out. So it doesn't taper down and stay tapered down. It tapers down and comes right back out into this nice little shape. So an incredible little bait that can be rigged a lot of different ways. This is the 4-inch version. They make 3 sizes, and man, when I tell you one of them is incredible when you're, as a minnow bait, a jig head minnow, I'll show it to you here in just a second, but it's incredible with the action of this bait. All right, let me show you the 3 different sizes, and I'll show you the different colors that I picked up. So I'm going to show you the difference in the sizes. This is a 5-inch here on top, this is a 4-inch, and this is a 3.25 on the bottom. All right, so let's start with the 3.25, and this is green pumpkin. This is a great little shad color. This is called blue oyster. This is a great color post spawn baby bass. This color is pretty crazy, and the name fits it. Lunacy. For all of you that's got perch in your lakes, emerald perch. One of my favorite little go-to colors, I love the kind of bluish pearl in the belly and that back color. This is TR shad. And another great color, crystal shad. All right, so we were throwing this over and maybe ticking a little bit of brush, and this rod was great for that. This is a Douglas. It's a 7'4", so it's a little bit longer. I can make a little longer cast because when those bass are up shallow in clear water, they get really spooky. So that longer rod is going to allow me to make a longer cast, stay off those bass just a little bit. Now this is a medium, but it's got some pretty good backbone to it, and it's an extra fast. So this little bait is really going to be, it's going to be responsive. And when they hit that bait, I'm going to get that immediate response so that I can set the hook on them and get them moving away if they're around any sort of brush or grass or docks that are back toward the backs of these creeks. I've got that paired with a Daiwa, and I don't ever know if I'm saying this right, Exceller. This is a 3000D-C. So, you know, good little reel right here. I've been using it for a while now. Really like it. And by the way, geeks, we don't do any sort of memberships because we don't want to charge you for anything that we do extra. We want to be inclusive to every single geek out there. So if you shop at Tackle Warehouse, everything in this video will be in the description. Bookmark that or scan this code, bookmark it on your phone. It helps us out. Thanks. And as you can tell, I've got my high vis pink. K9's Casting Braid is incredible, geeks. You need to go check it out. And they've got this new silk braid that is, it's hands down, far and away, the best braid. It has the most weaves or braids of any braid on the market. And I've got it coupled with Pro 100 100% fluorocarbon right here in 8-pound test. And for all of you that don't know, K9 is now on Tackle Warehouse. So let's talk about retrieves. Now, the great thing about this bait, because of that hinge, is it's got an incredible turning action. So it really almost turns back around, kind of like a jointed swim bait or a glide bait does. So when you just snap the rod just a little bit, that bait's going to come up and turn back around. So it's going to look that fish right in his face. And generally the bass, they don't like that. So they open up their mouth and say off, you know what I'm saying? So the basic retrieve that I'm going to do with this bait, you guys have heard me use this forever and a day. I'm going to do the 3-and-3 retrieve. And what that means is I'm going to throw it all the way up on the bank. I'm going to let it sink to the bottom, and I'm just going to give it a 1, 2, 3, very light pops of the rod. You can do it if you want it to stay low. You can twitch the rod tip down. If you want it to come up over some branches, which a lot of times we're going to be fishing this around wood, you can just twitch it up and let that bait fall back down. Now, what I'll do then, a lot of times, I'll just give it a 3 count. 1, 2, 3, and I'm just going to let that bait fall for about 3 seconds. Now, if I'm fishing a deep lake like this, a steep lake like this, I may give it just a few more seconds to get down there. Everything we've seen today, they've been in that 10-foot, give or take a few feet range. So getting it down there just above them to where they see it, and they see it twitching up, is going to be the key. But the bass will come a long way to eat this Mortal Minnow from Bass Reaper Baits. Really a unique soft jerk bait. Now when it comes to hook set on these, Again, to me, it's going to be a 45, especially if I'm around a lot of wood, if I'm working it over top of that sort of stuff, and we've seen a ton of big bass in that sort of stuff today. And again, that's what's great about the Douglas rod. You're going to hit it, you're going to get that response, it's going to get that bass turned and headed your way. Now, like I always say, as you're fighting that bass, go ahead and reel. Keep the tension on them. Keep the rod tip bowed and get down low and keep reeling. Make sure your drag is set right. Make sure that you are ready for the fight, because this time of year, they've got one thing on their mind, and that's pulling up on that bed to spawn. And when you hook them, they're going to be mad, and they're going to take you for a ride, especially if it's a good one. Get them in the boat, net, single hook, thumb. Don't boat hop them on a spinning rod. Don't be like me. I'm just not that smart, okay? All right, geeks, there's really two ways that I like to rig these. Now, this is more exposed hook. If I'm around rock, you know, some of those points, not a lot of cover on them. It's going to be this right here. This is the hover rig, so I've got a little hover hook in there. So that is super finessey. But now, the way we were fishing it today is just the way I fish a soft plastic jerkbait 90% of the time. Now, I want to get a little deeper because shallow to me is 10 feet because the lake is so clear. So I need to get down a little bit deeper, just a little bit quicker. So this is a Gamakatsu. It's a 1/8 ounce weight on here. So it's going to get a little bit quicker fall, and I can just twitch it along. Sometimes I'll use a little lighter weight too, but this is the way to go. And of course, I just expose it in the back so I can throw it and skip it right up into, you know, brush piles, weeds, wood, that sort of stuff. And that gets it down a little bit deeper. Now, you know, as far as the weight goes, if you don't have to get down 10 feet with this and you're just fishing, you know, 3 to 5, you can just use a standard hook in this. And 90% of the time, that's how most of you are going to fish it. Even if you have to get down to that deeper section, you know, 5, say, even 8 feet, what you can do is just go with a thicker wire hook, which will give you just a little bit more weight and a little quicker fall rate. For me, I got to get this down, like some of the bass today we were even seeing 15 feet, but most of them were in that 8 to 10. So that little 1/8 ounce really works well. All right, geeks. So when you run into those types of conditions that we've talked about today, make sure you go check out Bass Reaper Baits. This is the Mortal Minnow. I love small companies that have unique designed baits. That is what makes small companies great, because they come up with some really wild stuff that bigger companies, well, they just end up copying. Now, if you want to check out an incredible worm by Bass Reaper that has some crazy action, especially when you Nico rig it, make sure you go check this video out right here. Check out that icicle bait. Otherwise, questions and comments in the comment section below. Hey, tell me some of your go-to soft jerk baits in the spring and how you like to rig them if it's a little bit different. Otherwise, like it if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. Make sure you ring that bell. Be part of the 100% Water Squad. We need you, geeks. We love you. You geeks rock.